got a quick video today. I want to talk through and see how accurate are manufacturer sight tapes that come with your sight. So hunting season is wrapping up for most everyone. You might be looking at some new piece of equipment, bow, sight, whatever, some upgrades that you're going to do for the next year, and now's a good time to dial them in and try them all out. So I thought this would be good timing to talk through your sight tape building process and show you guys my results. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the Fast Steady XL. We're going to shoot the calibration tape that the manufacturer gives, go through that process, and we'll see how accurate it is for me. And maybe that can inform some of the things you might do with your setup or how you might look at it. But either way, we'll do that. I'll talk through what I'm observing and then maybe give some recommendations or tips on how I'm gonna make it work for me if I were to use the manufacturer tape. So come along, let's shoot a little bit. I'll show you guys more specifically what we're looking at with the tapes from Spot Hogg, and it should be pretty interesting. Sorry, it's pretty windy. For me, I have a new sight and I've got some arrows left over. That I've got 6 left, and I want to shoot them a good bit more, but rather than put all the effort into building a custom sight tape, I'm going to use the Spot Hogg included sight tape with my Spot Hogg Fast Steady XL for these 6 arrows for about a month or so, and just take my time building the new arrows. But it'd be good to show you guys how accurate are they, show you how to set it up, how they do the calibration tape and everything. So we'll just talk through all that. It should be pretty informative, should help you make some decisions or see what you might be up against with your setup. But either way, come along, we'll shoot a little bit. I got this new mini elk that's fun to shoot at. We're gonna get out pretty far and throw some bombs, so we'll see how it goes. All right, first I want to talk through a little bit more specifically how the calibration tape works that you're going to get from Spot Hogg. Now again, this is for the Fast Steady XL specifically, but keep in mind, manufacturers that include tapes with their sights, they're all kind of doing the same thing, where each of these tapes is indicative of, we'll say it represents a ballistic coefficient. Well, just to keep it simple. Now they might have some more factors that make it more complicated than others. Some of them might just purely be based on speed that your arrow's shooting. But when it comes down to it, this is representing some kind of ballistic solution for your arrow coming out of your bow, and you got to pick the right one that captures that well and gets your downrange results, satisfactory. But anyway, we're going to do some more videos that talk through what to do to set this up and pick the tape. But I'm going to talk a little bit at a higher level here on this, just to show you guys what I'm looking to see here. I'm just evaluating accuracy of these. Are these accurate for me? Do I like these? Is it satisfying what I expect out of my bow shooting far? What I've noticed here, so I put the tape on my Spot Hogg, the calibration tape, and I put that on there once I was shooting and I did this with my bottom pin. Some people will say do your top pin, do your bottom pin. I do my bottom pin because that's the one that I'm going to be sliding up and down as I'm shooting downrange. So I got my bottom pin dialed at 20 yards, because my sight was really was high up. But either way, I got that pin aligned at 20 with the calibration tape, and then I dialed the sight housing down to 60. And Spot Hogg suggests 20 and 60 for selecting their tapes. If I'm building a custom tape, I'd want to go 20 to 70, 20 to 80, whatever I can do. That's a whole nother process, but 20 to 60 is for the Spot Hogg tape. And I dialed that same bottom pin down to 60 and just walked back. I just walked back and kept shooting to get to 60. And what that does is wherever that same bottom pin that indicator goes down to, it lands on a number. And when you're at 60 yards, these numbers indicate which tape in the booklet is the one for you. And so for me, as I walk back to 60, you can see here which tape I got to. I got to tape 18, and that means that when I was at 60 yards with that bottom pin, my indicator pin was in the 18 little red space there. So I selected that and put that on. Rewinding a little bit, when I put the calibration tape on my Spot Hogg dial, I cut it a lot more thin. I didn't cut out this whole shape and slap it on. I cut out just the ticks that I needed to see the numbers. So what that allowed me to do is see on my dial. So if we dial back to like where it all began at 20 yards, you can see my calibration tape underneath the tape I selected. Because when I selected a tape, I was able to keep that 20 tick from the calibration tape aligned with the 20 tick on the tape I selected, the Spot Hogg manufacturer tape. So that's just a neat little trick. Keep that calibration tape on there so you can just and cut it narrow so you can lay down the new tape on top and make sure you're lining up those 20s to a T. But keep in mind too, I was doing the 20 with my bottom pin, so it's actually down there on this indicator, and this is the top pin indicator. So you set these once you once you get that bottom pin locked in. But I just wanted to explain that real quick. Now I want to talk a little bit about what I think will happen. We're gonna take this tape that I put on and shoot it from 60 and out. We're gonna walk away from 60 back to 70 and beyond, and see if the tape I selected is accurate downrange, like way downrange. But what I think is gonna happen is your tick as you walk back to 60 yards and your bottom pin is on 60 yards, as you go down the tape, these zones, red or black, which are indicative of the tape you should select, get wider and bigger. So for me, I was kind of on the boundary between 18 and 17. I was more in 18, but it had me thinking I might be in the range of the 17 tape. And for these tapes, the way it's working, as you go down, the tapes are capturing essentially a faster arrow or a flatter trajectory. Basically the tapes are getting more compact because your arrow's flying faster to a further distance in the same time. So either way, I selected 18, but what I think this is going to mean is that since 18 has some play, and I'm not way down here I think it'd be more magnified. But what I think it's going to mean for me is as I get further out, I think there's going to be a yard or two, maybe up to 5 yards difference for what I dial to what I'm actually shooting for. And we'll kind of see how that goes. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's going to be great for all my pins out to like 70-ish. But once we get far, I think I'm going to need to modify the tape or make ticks on here. Or we're going to need to do something, make some mental notes that keep me aligned with what my bow's actually shooting way down range. I just, since these zones are getting wider, that's what I suspect we will see. So we're back out here at 60. Decided to wait until today, so gave it a day. Yesterday the wind was like 13 miles an hour, sustained. Right now it's like 8 or 9, but it's directly to my back the way I'm shooting, so it should be a little bit less of a factor, but albeit it still will affect some things. But yeah, we're gonna give it a redo. So 60 yards, first up, here we go. All right, let's see how those look. So this is definitely a little better of a group, but I am just right. I'm gonna adjust my windage a little bit. I'm gonna move a little bit over and see if I can get these corrected to center, and then we're going to reshoot. So let's do that and see that I can fix that before we keep going back. So I gave the windage a bump right here. I was to the right, so I moved to the right, which should put me a little bit better on center. We're going to reshoot 60 and see if that fixed a little bit. So definitely fixed my left to right, but I just put that one a little high. Almost missed. So let's do the other two and see how we're doing. All right, so definitely a little high. This could even be a product of my 60 tape being a little bit, when I line up the 20s, maybe I need to shoot this for like 59, because I'm definitely like 4 or 5 inches high. But what this is looking like is right here. So not terrible. My windage adjustment was, I would call it perfect. Left, right, I'm all the same. I'm on the center, so that's cool. But we're definitely a little high, so mental note there, my tape's already looking a little bit, my tape's looking like it's a little bit slower maybe than I'm shooting. So let's go back to 70 and see what we get now. And I'm going to shoot at the bag target, just so I'm aiming lower. I don't want to risk, since I'm trending high, I want to aim at the bag in front of the elk, so the elk can be a high backstop to my aiming point. I don't want to lose any arrows by going over the top. So that's what we'll do now. Let's go back to 70 and see what we're looking like with this tape. We're back at 70. I'm gonna first make sure that I'm obviously got the pin on 70 here. And I got a little bit more of a backstop setup since I was already looking 4 inches high. We're gonna shoot the bag. So I got that set up. But let's see how 70 looks with this tape. We'll fire some off. I think they're still a little high. All right, walking up. That confirms we are high. Not the worst group at 75 yards for me. Again, we got a little wind. But all in all, I'm about 6 to 8 inches high right here, just blatantly. So if we go back to 80, I'm actually gonna aim in between these bottom two dots. I'm gonna aim kind of right there at the end of my finger, just to have some insurance, to know that I'm not gonna go skim over the top. So let's see how 80 looks. All right, so here's where we're at. Now keep in mind, I was actually aiming right here. So based on where we landed, I'm probably 5 inches high, maybe even a whole foot high, 10 inches high. With this as my center point, these are all exceedingly high. And I think on this good one, even where I'm kind of closest, I feel like I got my release when my pin was a little low on center. I released when I was probably about at the ground and the target, which kind of makes sense with this height difference. So 80 yards, at 80 yards, I'm going to say I'm averaging about a foot high. So we're definitely getting out of range here with the tape. It's getting out of whack. So another thing here, again, I'm not shooting to just show how great I am at shooting. This isn't a wonderful, super impressive group at 80 yards. I'm just out here, I put the tape on, I'm shooting it, I'm walking it back until the wheels fall off. and we're seeing a trend. This is about a foot high at 80 yards. So going forward, I'm gonna go back to 85, and I'm gonna actually put the tape, my pin. I'm gonna shoot it for 82 and a half for 85 yards. So let's see if that brings these down a little bit better. All right. So actually this was a little bit better. So 85 yards, I shot it for 82 on my tape. And I'm saying we're probably averaging 6 inches high or so, maybe 6 to 7 inches high. So actually at 85 yards, I'd probably shoot that at 81, take another yard off of it. So I'm gonna make that note. To wrap up, let's shoot 90 yards. All right, so I think this will be the last one. We're at 90 yards. I'm gonna shoot this for 85 flat. I've basically been noticing that a 3-yard difference would have been pretty good, a 4-yard difference would have been pretty good. Now going 5 more yards to 90, I'm gonna shoot it for 85 on my tape, and we'll see how close to center this is. I'm at 90 yards. Just got set for 85 on my tape. Let's see how it looks. All right, before that 90 group, I took like 5 minutes to just relax for a second, get my breath back and everything, and that helps a ton. If you shoot a bunch of groups in a row, it starts to kind of deteriorate. So I think this group was pretty nice. I think shooting it for 85 was the ticket with this tape. So walking up on it now, let's see how it looks. This was definitely about the right elevation. So 90 yards, shot it for 85 with this tape. That is getting me pretty close. Maybe even I'm a touch low. I had one kind of super right shot there. Don't love that, but anyway, these are really good notes. Let's go back to the bow, and I'll show you guys what I'm going to do to make these notes if I were to use this tape just going forward. Now I'm going to talk about what can you do if you're going to shoot a factory tape but you want a little more customization for those longer distances that are getting a little off. I think it's safe to say the tape that I chose, based on how I did the calibration tape, started to taper off as we got back to 90 yards. It's just apparent, and I think it's the nature of having a few tapes to select. When you want to go really far, those variables become more important, so that tape needs to be more pinpointed. But what I'm going to talk about is the way that I would probably approach modifying a tape. And this is kind of tedious, gets a little arts and crafts related. But one thing I want to show is, I know some people would be quick to, get out a Sharpie. You can get the fine point, the normal Sharpie or whatever, and maybe you want to make some ticks on the tape, and say, hey, these are my new points that I want to use. The problem with that is with the Spot Hogg tapes, the way that they're already kind of pre-laminated type of paper, which is nice because it's waterproof. It won't fade from UV and stuff, but it just won't accept like Sharpie or a pen. So you're going to need to be a little more. You need to be a little more crafty than just making marks on a tape. So I'll show you how I'd approach that. Again, keep in mind, ideally I would build a custom tape to get these numbers way out, just really dialed. But you can make this as good as you want to. I'm just going to show you kind of the base process for how I would approach this, if I were wanting to use this tape for any extended time. And I actually am going to do this for about the next month before I build arrows and build a new custom tape. I don't have a need to have a super dialed tape. I'm just going to enjoy shooting, work on my shot, kind of 60 yards and down. But what I've got here is a really small piece of paper, and I just cut this out. I just cut this out of a normal, piece of paper, like notebook paper, and this is going to allow me to write my ticks with a Sharpie, customized for the distances that I shot that have been field verified. Downrange statistics are confirmed. Like, this is where the arrows are landing for that point on the tape. So we're gonna amend the tape. We're gonna add this on top of it superficially to give these correct distances, past 70, 80, wherever you want to intercede. So what I have done here is I've actually written some distances that I'm going to use as milestones, or just points along the tape that I'm going to correct, that I'm going to amend. So at 75 yards, I just shot it for 72, and that was a better elevation. At 80, 77, 85, 81, 90, 85. And you can hone and tweak these in as precise as you need to. You could shoot this for a week or weeks and get these numbers really dialed. Shoot on days that aren't windy, etc. to get this right. But for me, this is just quick references to what I just shot just now. So I wrote these down, and that's what we're going to transcribe onto this little piece of paper. All right, so to start this off, my first piece of data is 75 yards, which I shot at 72. So what I'm going to do is write down, I'm going to make a tick right here like this with the 75, and I'm going to lay that tick in alignment with the 72. And that's going to be kind of where we begin this amendment. So that's aligned. The next one that I have, and this is really tedious, but it works. The next one that I have is going to be my 80 yards, which I shot at 77. So we're going to make that tick real quick. Okay, just kind of blotched that one a little bit too big, but that's all right. Let me go write 80 real quick. Okay, I'm going to align back the 75 at 72. And our next one, it was 85 yards at 81. So making sure I got the right 81. 81 is here. Make a little tick there. That's my 85. And then lastly was 90. I shot it for 85. So let's get that back aligned. All right. And that's kind of crude, but that's really what you're doing. You could obviously do this inside at a desk and be much more precise, but for me, this is just showing conceptually what we're doing. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to amend the smallest amount of the tape as I can. So I'm actually going to cut this right at the 90. And I'm going to do this because if I just have this little piece that I'm taping on, I can add more on later. I can just do this again and add this on top to extend down. But I'm just going to put these on for now. So this is going to take me more accurately out to 90. All right. This is kind of a funny angle for me, but let's see if we can do this. What I'm going to do now is I've got some masking tape. I'm going to take my little piece of tape, and I'm just gonna stick it on. I'm gonna stick it on there in the middle. And I know this looks goofy, but what we're doing is we're giving a way for this to be laminated and to stick onto our dial and go over the manufacturer tape. So let's get this ripped off. So now we got that. Which is our distances, and all we're going to do now is just cut this as close as possible to the tape that we stuck on. So you can see how we're doing this here. Little arts and crafts. And now the part that requires the most finesse. We're gonna stick this on and we're gonna align. Again, my first one was 75 that I shot for 72. So I'm gonna align that tick that I drew to the 72 and press it in place. And another thing I forgot to note is it's gonna be easier. I went to go stick this on and forgot these the indicator pins here on the dial. You can move these out of the way. That'll make it a lot easier to stick this on. And now we're gonna stick it on. All right, and I'm being really careful to make sure 72, 75, 80, 77, 85, 81, and then 90 at 85, and it's lining up pretty good. I'm just gonna make sure that tape is pressed on there nice. All right, that's on there. And now we're gonna put this back. It has a little bit of play to it, so just remember, here, reach around this way. Just remember, if you have it at the beginning or at the end of its play, whenever I've set this and seated the screw, I've had it all the way out to the end, and I've remembered that. So make sure you make a note of that if you're gonna take this loose and put it back. So right there, it's not real glamorous. It's a little bit crude looking. I just did this fast to show the concept, but this is what we'd be doing. So now, I would just take this back out to the field and validate that this is doing what I need it. Reshoot 75, reshoot 80, reshoot 85, and 90, and see if I can make this any better. See if I can improve on these numbers or the distances, intervals, or just make a cleaner, amendment tape in general. But either way, that is the process there. Guys, so all in all, definitely confirmed my suspicions. The manufacturer tapes are going to get you to play ball at longer distances. You're going to be close, but for those perfect intervals going out 70, 80, 90 yards, you're going to have to probably explore customizing or building a custom tape. And that was kind of what I suspected. I think you could get lucky and pick one of the tapes and it might be really deadly accurate out in those intervals for you. It could happen that way. But for me, I was a little bit in between the 17 and 18 tape. So at those longer distances, my tape was slower than I was shooting. So I was landing high. But either way, hope this was helpful. Again, kind of crude modification to the sight tape, but definitely could be effective to kind of have live notes on your dial of your ballistics, of downrange, how it would look for you. So I don't know, let us know if there's anything you're doing kind of like this, or any recommendations for other people. We're open to kind of knowing how you do it too. Again, like to build custom tapes using Archer's Advantage and doing a little bit more exact process. But this is a good way to get a tape that's sliding to those farther distances well. So yeah, let us know any thoughts. Again, subscribe if you're new, if you watch this. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time.